Good evening, everyone. This is Amihai Zippor for WebYeshiva, and this is part of our Order of the Seder 2023 series. Today, this morning, wherever you are, we'll be talking about Maror for a little bit, and we hope the Torah that you learned from from our special series, Order of the Seder, we hope it really enhances your Pesach Seder, even if it's not this year, even if it's for next year. um, Maror. So I remember growing up and all the Siddharim that we had. What did we use from Maror? We used the horseradish root, and we didn't use romaine lettuce. We didn't use other things. I don't know why. I don't know why. If it was because um, it just there wasn't the minhag in the area. I'm from Boston. I'm sure other people in Boston used lettuce, um, or maybe some other things, but we used the root. And you know, we sometimes had it in like big chunks, or we had it shaved, and you know, tried to eat what we could. And and some years the horseradish root was really sharp. I mean, you're huffing and puffing and trying to eat as much as you could. And other years it was kind of dull, and you'd be wondering like, wow, I'm eating so much of it. This is really this is really something. And what I when I think back to those memories of eating the maror at all of those Siddharim when I was younger, um, really what comes out of it is it was an experience. And it was an experience whether it was really sharp, really hard to do. It was an experience whether it was not so sharp and you couldn't understand why, sometimes you're like happy, wow, I'm eating all this maror, but at the same time you want something more, and you know so. And I think that that's definitely the thing that the Seder itself is supposed to instill in us, is the experience. We're supposed to try to bring us back to, we're all leaving Egypt. Even today we're leaving Egypt, we're leaving Mitzrayim. And so all of these things that we do um, help us get to that point. And specifically with Maror, it was definitely an experience. And and in later years, since I've been here in Eretz Israel, uh, we don't usually have the I don't usually use the actual horseradish root for this. We use the romaine lettuce, and it's not exactly the same. um, it's still bitter on a certain level, um, and but I feel like you have to dig a little deeper to get to um, the idea of maror and what it means leaving Mitzrayim, and I hope we can do that a little bit tonight here. Um, Here's some Mikorot I put together for this evening. Not everything that I'm going to do is on here, and some things on here I'm not going to do. We'll see what happens. Um, the first thing I want to do is go over a few places in the Haggadah where it mentions maror. The first one is obviously in the order of the Seder, right? Kadesh, Orechatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rachza, Mohotzi, Matzah. Everyone now. I don't hear you. Maror, right? Maror. So the maror is something that is so important that it's in the order of the Seder itself. And I was thinking, it's kind of like, in everything in life, there's a little something that kind of goes the other direction. But it helps enhance everything else. And so here in the order of the Seder Maror, of course, it's important. It's there. It's a focus of what we need to do on that night. The next place where it shows up is in Manishtana. Right, man ishtana laila zeh mikol halelot shebechol halelot anu ochlim chametz umatzah halayla hazeh kulo matzah. Then shebechol halelot anu ochlim she'ar yirakot Halayla hazeh maror. I was never someone who, except maybe on the Seder night, because I already mentioned that we tried to eat the horseradish root, but I was never someone that liked charif, that liked bitter. I didn't understand it. I didn't want a part of it. And I would say since I've been here in Eretz Israel, my taste buds have changed a little bit, and I actually really like charif. I I'm someone who right now during this time of year around Pesach, you always, if you didn't look at a calendar, if you didn't hear what was going on in the news, if you didn't know Pesach was coming, if you saw right now the fresh garlic, Israeli garlic, you knew Pesach was right around the corner. And I'm someone that loves to eat that garlic. I go buy tons of that garlic. I hang it up to dry for the year. I'm someone now that I eat garlic raw. I eat onions raw. Um, I love it. I love it. And the rest of the year, the whole year, I like to have some of my crunchy, yummy, fresh garlic, with whatever I'm eating, with the tahina, with the salad, with the whatever it is, I'm eating the vegetables and whatever the side dishes are, chewing on a little garlic or a little onion or something like that. Dip the pita in the nice olive oil with the hummus, and it's so yummy. Bunch on it, chomp on a piece of onion. um, and here it says, I, I I didn't relate to this part of Manish Tana until I think in the last bunch of years. All the other nights we eat shar yirakot, halayla zeh maror. Um, and and it's interesting to me because like when I wasn't so focused on like, oh, I want something harif, I want some garlic or onion with it. I didn't relate to this so much, but now I do, and it's really interesting um that now the maror on this night, it's the focus. The other stuff isn't the focus. It's like I'm focusing on eating the maror, and the other stuff usually during the rest of the year, the maror, the thing that's bitter, is enhancing what you're eating. Um, and here, really, it's the focus. It's not the side. It's not the sidekick of the food. It's the focus, right? The next time that maror shows up in the Haggadah is Rabban Gamliel Haya Omer. It's in Magid. We've already gone through kind of the story, and it's just before Hallel. And Rabban Gamliel Haya Omer, Kol Shelo Amar Shlosha Devarim Elu BaPesach Lo Yatsa Yedei Chovato. Rabban Gamliel says, okay, if you haven't done anything else, for whatever reason, you have to say these three things. You have to say Pesach, Matzah, Umaror. Pesach, Matzah, Maror. Maror zeh sha'anu ochlim al shumma. Why are we eating? What's the whole? Why are we doing? Why are we eating the maror? Al shum shemereru hamitzrim et chayei avotenu b'mitzrayim. Right? They made our lives bitter. The mitzrim. They made our lives bitter in Mitzrayim. Shinemar, and it brings the pasuk. Vayimareru et chayeihem ba'avodah kasha. They made our lives really, really terrible with the avodah kasha, the hard work. Bechomer, uvilvenim, uvechol avodah basadeh, et kol avodatam asher avdu bahem befarach. I put you some English there. They made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and in brick and all the manner of service in the field and all their service wherein they made them serve with rigor. They made their lives basically. Sometimes you have to translate the English, but they made our lives really terrible. Vayimaru et chayehem, right? And and it's interesting. This particular part, Rabban Gamliel, um, it's basically this part of Magid is kind of colliding with what comes next with the meal, right? Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rachsa. Okay, Rachsa, and then Motzi Matzah. But it's Magid here is kind of colliding with the meal. And so it's interesting that Rabban Gamliel is put right here and speaks about Pesach Matzah and Maror. Um, and the Mefarshim, they kind of hop on this, and there's different opinions of what he means by when he says, um, what's the exact word he says here? Kol shelo amar. What is amar, right? You just have to say Pesach, Matzah, Umaror. Boom, I'm done. or or is there something more? So there's two main opinions of why Pesach Matzah Umaror is placed here, and it's kind of colliding with the meal a little bit. One of them is that the mitzvah of telling the story, um, the mitzvah is telling the story. We're in Magid, so there's a mitzvah of telling the story, right? And you can't fully do this without talking about these three things: Pesach, Matzah, Umaror, right? You can talk about, I guess, like there probably are ways to talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim without somehow mentioning Pesach, Matzah, or Maror, or at least up until this point. But 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 that's really important. That there's the mitzvah of telling the story, and you can't really do it without talking about these three things, right? The other opinion is that because we're getting close to the meal, that the mitzvah of eating needs to be accompanied by explaining. Otherwise, you haven't really reached the full potential of the mitzvah of the meal, right? So there's two things here. There's one that it's really about Magid, that this is here about Magid, and you can't really tell the story without mentioning these three things. Or there's another opinion that because we're getting to the meal, so we need to mention these three things and talk about them because we're going to be doing Pesach Matzah and Maror, and we need to bring them out in the open, talk about them, because like just eating Maror, not enough. Okay. Oh, and there's a nice little quote on this from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha. He says, Rabban Gamliel argues that the two are connected. The story explains the food. The food allows us to relive the story. So, anybody have any questions? Just checking the chat here. Okay, great. So let's go a little deeper now. What is this bitterness that 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 is kind of comes up? It's such a focus of the Seder and Yetziat Mitzrayim. What is the bitterness itself? Scroll down here a little bit. Hold on. Oh, before I do that, real quick, the next time that Maror is mentioned is, of course, in when we say the blessing, the bracha of Asher Kicha Mitzvah Tzivanu Al Achilat Maror. Okay, hold on. All right. Now, I want to quickly review the story in Shemot, beginning of Shemot, and how this bitterness developed. Vayakam melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yadat Yosef. The very beginning of Sefer Shemot. First, before this, it lists all the names of the people that went down to Mitzrayim and says there was a new king that arose in Mitzrayim that didn't know Yosef. And of course, it's not clear if it was a new king or the same king, but anyway. Vayomer al amo, hine am bnei Yisrael rave atzum mimenu. Hava nidchakma lo pen yirbe v'haya, ki tikrena milchama v'nosaf gamhu al sanenu, v'nilcham banu v'ala min ha'aretz. So, Vayasimu alav sarei misim leman anoto b'siflotam vayiven arei miskenot lefaro et pitom v'et ramser. So there was the new king who didn't know Yosef, and for some reason they became afraid of Bnei Israel, who suddenly they weren't just 70 people that came down to Mitzrayim. They were a lot more people. and they started to get worried, and they started to worry about what if another nation comes and wars against us, and what if this Bnei Israel decides to fight against them, against us? What are we going to do? Vayasinu alav sarei misim leman anoto. So they the Mitzrayim started to make the lives of Bnei Israel difficult. They put on them. They, appointed. They set up people who were sarei misim to. It sounds like I was saying task masters, but it sounds like tax masters. But that's an idea too, that they started to put taxes on them. Um, and they made them work. Vayivan arei miskenot lefaro et Pitom ve'et Ramses. Pitom and Ramses were actually, I think, already there and built, but they used Bnei Israel to start enhancing them and building them up. V'kasher ya'anu oto ken yirbeh v'chen yifrotz vayakutzu mipnei Bnei Israel. And the harder that the Mitzrayim worked them, the more they were of Bnei Israel, and they became like a thorn in the side of the Egyptians. Vayavidu Mitzrayim et Bnei Israel befarach. They worked them. Befarach, you could say, is like ruthlessly. Vayamaru et chayehem ba'avodah kasha. Sound familiar? V'chomer uvilvenim. V'chol avodah basadeh. Et kol avodotam asher avedu behem befarach. Again, they worked them really hard. They were ruthless, and it was really, really tough. Vayomer melech Mitzrayim lam yaladot havriyot asher shem hachat shifra v'shem hasheni pua. Then we have, the story of the melech Mitzrayim Paro. He tells Shifra and Pua that when the women of Bnei Israel are giving birth, if it's a boy, throw it in the water, kill it. If it's a girl, then they can the babies can live. And of course, Shifra and Pua didn't listen. And Vaitzav Paro lechol amo lemor kol ben hayilud. Now, kol ben yilud hayaor tashlichu. Then Paro tells his own people, he's making them part of all of this, that when Ben Israel has children, if it's a boy, throw it in the water. Okay? So that's kind of the basic story, the beginning of Shemot, about what happens before the Moshe starts to show up. And you can see, look at the words that it's using, right? You have Leman Anoto, Befarech, Vayamararu, Vayavidu, Befarech, and then cruel things, killing babies. That's for Shalom. So how did we get to this point? How did the situation get to this? So I want to go back now. I want to go back to Sefer Breshit, and I want to go back to Brit Bein HaBetarim, because it was at Brit Bein HaBetarim where Abraham is having a super wild nevuah, and towards the end of the nevuah there, Hashem tells Abraham what's going to happen down the line to his ancestors. Specifically, that they will be enslaved and afflicted by a nation in a land that's not theirs. Right here, Breshit Tet Vav Yud Bet Tet Vav. Okay. Vayehi Hashemesh lavo v'tardema nafla al Avram. He fell into a deep sleep. V'hinei ema chashecha gedola nofelet alav. Right, and kind of this heavy darkness fell on him. Vayomer leAvram. Hashem says to Avram, Yadoa teda Ki ger yihiyeh zaracha be'eretz lo lahem. Hashem tells Avram, no, that your descendants will be strangers in a land that's not theirs. Va'avadum ve'inu otan arba meot shana. Right? They will have to serve this other nation, um, and this other nation will afflict them, and it will be for 400 years. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole how does it work out 400 years. There's the idea that, from Yitzchak till the end was 400 years. That's a whole other discussion, but let's continue. V'gam et hagoy asher ya'avodu dan anochi. And the nation that is going to be enslaving them, afflicting them, also them, I am going to judge them. And afterwards, Bnei Israel, your descendants, they're going to leave Mitzrayim with great wealth. And you, Abraham, you're not going to be experiencing any of this. You'll kind of, your time will end in peace and in this world. Yeah, so basically what we have here is Hashem tells Abraham that his descendants are going to be in a strange land, not their own, and that nation that there will be that kind of runs that place, va'avadum ve'inu, right? They're going to enslave them and afflict them. That's all it says here. It doesn't say anything else about what was going to happen. When we just a few minutes ago when we looked at the Psukim Shemot, there's a lot more going on there. Vayimararu et chayihem, avodah kasha, befarach, another befarach, and it gets so bad that they're going to kill the children, the Mitzrayim. So you can see that. How do we get to this point of Miyamararu? How do we get to the point of bitterness that was reached? You can see that the Nevuah, the Rambam says that when it comes to Nevuah, that how do you know if a Navi is a real Navi? So if they prophesize that there's if the bad things they prophesize, the bad things that a Navi prophesizes, they don't have to come true. They could change because of people can do tshuva in the world. The good things that a Navi prophesizes, those have to come true. And it definitely became true that Bnei Israel was going to be enslaved and that they were going to be redeemed. That happened. The bad part, it looked like it got worse for some reason than what was actually prophesized, for whatever reason. And we know it got really, really bad there. Now, is that because Bnei Israel themselves did bad things? I don't think so. I think that, what we saw here from the Nevuah, from the Brit Bein HaBitarim, V'gam et hagoy asher ya'avodu dan anochi. Hashem says to Abraham, remember, I'm going to judge the nation that is carrying out the job I gave to them. And I think this is like an important lesson in life because, when you're at your Seder, you can talk about the story, you can talk about, how you could say it wasn't supposed to be this bad, but it got really bad. You could ask the people at your Seder, whose fault do you think it was? Was it Bnei Israel? Or was it the Mitzrim? And it seems to be, not to put it all on the Mitzrim, but I think it was really the fault of the Mitzrim here. In life, we all have a certain, you could say everybody has a certain authority over something, over somebody else. or you have a certain authority that you carry with you into a relationship. You know, um, husband and wife, neither they're both equals, um, and they can use their emotions, they can use their, you know, how they feel uh, in various ways. But there's really like there's a gvul, there's a boundary where you really shouldn't cross. You know, a boss in a company has a certain level of authority. He can tell his workers whether they're not doing good or doing good, but someone needs to be punished for some reason. Like, you know, it's there's a line you're not supposed to cross. And I think what happened here in a certain respect is that, you know, Mitzrayim was was the was the most powerful nation in the world at the time. They had all the power, um, and it was certainly fitting that Hashem chose Mitzrayim as the place for Bnei Israel to become a nation and to leave, because also Mitzrayim was kind of the bastion of Avodah Zarah, and what better place to for Hashem to express Himself in the world, or and have the people of the world express that Hashem is in the world. What better place to do it than in a place that is so where people are so the opposite thinking, where Avodah Zarah is like, you know, rampant, where it's just it's the hardest place to do this, and so the Mitzrim were given a certain level of authority, of power, um, and they took it way too far. A little bit further here, in the next Makor here, the Ramban talks about this, and second, I'm not going to read the whole thing right now because there's definitely a lot there, but hold on. There we go. If you just skip down to the third line, where my cursor is here, V'hanachon, the Ramban says here, talking about V'gam et hagoy asher yavidu, that Hashem's going to judge that nation. והנכון בעיניי כי טעם וגם אף על פי שאני גזרתי על זרעך להיות גרים בארץ לא להם. So the Ramban says that Hashem saying, even though I, you know, decreed that your descendants Abraham are going to be strangers in a land that's not their own, va'avadum ve'inu otam, and they're going to be, you know, worked and afflicted. Afal pikein efshotet hagoy asher ya'avodu. I'm going to judge the nation that is going to be doing this to them. Even though I've given them, here's the keys to Bnei Israel and their enslavement in Egypt. Here you go, Egyptians. Afal pikein efshotet hagoy asher ya'avodu. Al asher ya'asu lahem v'lo yipatru ba'avor she'asu gezerati. And just because I gave them, Hashem's saying to basically, Hashem saying basically, just because I gave them the right to be able to do this right now, it doesn't mean that whatever they do, we're just gonna like look the other way. V'chein haya b'Mitzrayim shehosifu lehara, and so it was in Mitzrayim that they hosifu lehara, they you know really did their job a lot worse than they were supposed to do it. They added to the terrible actions that they added on to what they were supposed to do in really bad ways. Ki hishlichu b'neihem leyor. They were going to throw the children into the water. Vayamaru et chayihem. They made their lives bitter. V'chashvu limchot et shemam. They wanted to um, that they would basically erase their names. V'zeh tam dan anochi, and this is the reason why Hashem says dan anochi, she'avi otam b'mishpat, I will bring them to judgment. Imasu kenigzar alehem o hosifu lehara lahem, whether they did what I said for them to do, or whether they really went overboard, and they really did go overboard. And yeah, so I'm not going to do the rest of this because it's pretty long. But he basically, the Ramban here continues to do more, to go a little deeper into this, and it's really wild. I want to just finish up with one other thing to give you another perspective of Maror and an idea of what it's about. And a second. This is a section from the Haggadah of the Beit Yaakov. Beit Yaakov is he's the son of the Mea Shiloach, Mordechai Yosef, and Mordechai Yosef's son was Yaakov. The Mea Shiloach lived from about 1800 till 1854, so this is his son. And in the Haggadah of the Beit Yaakov, it says the following: Maror, Zeh she'anu ochlim al shum ma. And this particular section is taken from the part where Rabbi Gamliel says, that you should say Pesach Matzah Maror. Maror zeh she'anu ochlim al shum ma, vayimararu et chayehem, et kol avodatam asher avdu bahem befarach. They made their lives really bitter, and all the work that they made them do was befarach. They were ruthless with it. So the Beit Yaakov brings a Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer from Sota, the Gemara from Sota. Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Bepeh rach. What is befarach? Bepeh rach. Rabbi Shimon is like a soft kind of, we'll call it literally soft mouth. Rabbi Shimon bar Nachmani Omer, Bepricha, which is a little bit rougher. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim shekol kavanat Mitzrayim haya lehashkiach milev Yisrael shorsham v'yichusam shezehu ikar hagalut. The whole thing of Mitzrayim, what they were trying to do, was to get Bnei Yisrael to forget who they were and where they came from. Shezehu ikar hagalut. This is the essential part of galut, forgetting who you are. Shebe'et she'yichus me'ir lifnehem shehem yitzir kapav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that when Bnei Israel know who they are, where they came from, that they are literally like that. We are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us. Ein lahem shibud klal, sheyesh lahem lenir lehitpalel v'yoshiem. When we know who we are, when we know that that Hashem is the master of the world, then there really isn't any slavery, because we know we have someone to pray to cry out to. We know we have someone that will save us. Shezot yidu hamitzrim, shebe'imi pa'el Yisrael Hashem yitbarach betach yanem. The Mitzrim knew this. They knew that if we still remembered who we were, that we will cry out to Hashem, we will dive into Hashem, and Hashem will save us. They knew this. Lachein hitchilu betchila beperach, hainu bidvarim tovim, lahatotam shelo ya'aleh al libam v'da'atam shehem avadim the Mitzrim, they they spoke to us kindly. They tried to kind of do the shibud in a way at first that we wouldn't realize what was happening. Um, בפרח היינו בדברים טובים להטותם, שלא יעלה על ליבם ודעתם שהם עבדים. שירחש ליבם צעקה ותפילה להשם יתברך. They would do things very slowly to get us to, look, Galot sometimes does that anyways, There are things that you see, you want to do, and slowly, 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 you forget about who you are, you forget about what you're supposed to do, and that's what the Mitzrim were trying to do here. So we wouldn't cry out and do tefillah to Hashem. ואחר כך נעשה בפריחה, היינו, שהרגילון כל כך מעט מעט בעבדות, עד שלא הרגישו כלל ממירותם ועבודתם, ושכחו שורשם לגמרי, ונעשו מרגלים בעבודה, ונדמה להם שכך נולדו עבדים. Then they went into like more of an intensive kind of brainwashing, let's call it, where there's forgetting who you are and where you come from, so that way you don't have an answer to your situation, and then that it was that the bitterness was the word here he uses. It was pretty intense. Ad shelo hirgishu klal mirirotam, that feel you wouldn't even feel the bitterness that's going on. That's what the Mitzrim tried to do. Miyad nit oreru Yisrael v'hergishu. Sorry. Ukeshenigla Hashem yibarach leMoshe ve'amar lo Hashem echiyeh. And when Hashem revealed himself to Moshe and said the special name echiyeh, Shezeh Hashem me'orer ha'Yeshua. This is, according to the Zohar, this is a name that awakens the Yeshua. Miyad nitoru Yisrael v'hergishu hamiru. Then Bnei Israel, they awoken. They awoke and they started to feel. They realized what was going on. V'yet u'tza'aram. They knew, they understood the pain and everything. V'zichru she'enam avadim mitolda v'yesh lahem al mi lismoch lahit panel lefanav. And they realized, I wasn't a slave from my birth. This is not who I am. This is not who I'm supposed to be. And they realized that they had someone. They had Hashem to pray to. Ulezehu halacha bala maror lo yatsa. She'adarabba zehu ikar hamrirot she'ein ha'adam mirgosh tza'aro ve'ein lo shum hitorut litfilah shehamrirut nivla v'ne'ela mimenu. This is what maror really is, according to Beit Yaakov, and it's really, really intense. That maror is supposed to get us to understand that what is maror about? It's about forgetting who we are. It's about forgetting where we come from. It's about forgetting that we have Hashem to daven to, that we have Yeshua down the road. That's what Maror is really about. The Mitzrim, they did it slowly, 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 until they got us, and then we forgot who we were. We forgot where we came from. According to the Zohar, when Hashem revealed himself to Moshe with the special name Echiyeh, it awoke in us. ועל ידי זה האדם מרגיש המרירות, נקל לו מאוד לבוא לצעקה, שאז נמצא באדם כוח תפילה להשם יתברך. וזו המצווה רומזת לאדם לידע שהשם יתברך רוצה בזה שהאדם ירגיש צערו וחסרונו ויתפלל להשם יתברך שישלים לו חסרונו. שמרור מכניס לאדם, that the maror, it מכניס לאדם דעה שלא יתייאש משום דבר. The maror is something that when we eat it, then when we talk about it, we need to realize that it's something that it puts it opens us up. When it goes inside, it opens us up to realize that there's nothing to worry about. It's to remind us who we are, where we came from, the ein yeush ba'olam, and v'chein lo yeh b'naicha lomar shedai lo below zeh v'lo, and with Maror, it does such a wonder to us that really at the end of the day, we just know that we have hope. So that was the from the Haggadah of the Beit Yaakov. It's an amazing Haggadah. Really recommend it. I'm gonna leave it on that note. Thank you very much, and enjoy all the other special shirim that we're having for Pesach. And all the best.
Thank you. Chag Sameach for Pesach and happy cleaning and everything elsing.
You too.
Thank you.